Our current tale begins in the little-known land known as the United Kingdom. Called the UK for short, this humble land consists of four different nations: England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and, most pivotal to our story today, Scotland. The immediate tale begins in 2016. Britain, and thus all other places in the United Kingdom, had been a member of the European Union since 1973. Scotland has greatly enjoyed the benefits of EU membership, especially in regards to trade, but Britain screwed all that up with the 2016 vote known as Brexit, a vote that officially stated that the United Kingdom would leave the European Union. That brings us neatly along to Scotland and the issue of independence. Now, for some context. Technically, I could begin this story all the way back at the Big Bang, but I'd like to finish narrating before I graduate, so I'm instead going to start a little less than 2,000 years ago with the humble nation of ancient Rome. You see, during the first century of the Common Era, or the first century CE, if you will, Rome had conquered Britain and saw no reason to stop there.
What's up? We just conquered your neighbor down south, and we kind of want your land. Why don't you kindly give it to us?
No, this is our land. We're not scared of you. And newsflash, no one's intimidated by your bizarre six-pack armor.
Aha, yes, we just won the Battle of Mons Gropius. Take that, Caledonian.
You may have defeated us, but you'll never go further north than this.
We'll continue fighting and using guerrilla tactics to fight you off. You'll never advance further north than this. We'll even raid Hadrian's Wall sometimes.
Oh no, not my wall!
The Pict was right. Despite their devastating victory at the Battle of Mons Gropius in 83 CE, the Romans faced such fierce resistance that they gained very little ground afterwards. By 212, they had pretty much abandoned Scotland entirely, firmly establishing Scotland as independent and resistant to foreign powers. Scotland would continue fighting for its independence, beating back the Vikings in the 8th century, and, after being declared a feudal territory by England during the heart of the Middle Ages, Scotland waged the First War of Scottish Independence, led by the likes of William Wallace, until he got a bit shorter in 1305, and Robert the Bruce. Scotland beat back England, who eventually relented, declaring Scotland independent in 1328. In 1660, Scottish-backed Charles II would take the throne of England, which would then pass to his brother, James II. He wasn't overly fond of Protestants, persecuting Anglican priests and even suspending Parliament when it refused to ratify his anti-Protestant legislation. In 1688, he would lose his throne in the Glorious Revolution, going into exile. However, his supporters, known as Jacobites after James' Latin name, would persist in Scotland for decades after. Throughout the next 19 years, Scotland's economy would crumble. An attempted and failed colonization of Panama would cripple its economy, and a divide in the Scottish Parliament left its own succession unclear. In 1707, Scotland, desperate to save its economy and restabilize its government, entered a voluntary union with Great Britain. It's important to remember that the main two reasons Scotland entered this union were for the boost to its economy resulting from ties to England, and
the security and continuing stability
England would provide. These are just some of the main benefits of the treaty: economic stability, access to England's market and trade networks, security from rebellions, mainly the Jacobites, exclusion of James II's descendants from the English royal line, safeguard from Catholic France and other imperialist states that might have wanted to take Scotland over, and unification of currency, taxes, and trade across the two nations. Our story then brings us to 2014, when Scotland held a referendum to vote on independence that resulted in a resounding no. Two of the main reasons were England's membership in the EU, and the belief that England would handle a crisis much better than Scotland by itself. However, that brings us neatly along to where our lovely tale began initially, with the 2016 vote that finalized England's decision to leave the European Union. While that decision was supported by a majority in England, the Scottish voters overwhelmingly voted against leaving, showing their clear support of remaining in the EU. There had been a growing body of support for the Scottish National Party, or SNP, a party that has fought for independence in Scottish Parliament, and which had won many of its elections since 2007. Nicola Sturgeon, who has served as First Minister of Scotland since 2014, is a member of the SNP, and promised to begin talks of a new independence referendum if the SNP won its parliamentary elections again. However, while such a referendum is legal, it must be approved of by the Prime Minister of England. As stated in Section 30 of the 1998 Scotland Act. Prime Minister of England, in case no one knows, is Boris Johnson.
Prime Minister Johnson, I promised my people talks would begin for another referendum if the pro-independence parties won the parliamentary election. Now that that's happened, you will approve another referendum, right?
No.
But the Scottish people clearly support independence. Look, the main parties that support independence, the Scottish National Party and the Scottish Green Party, won 72 seats out of our Parliament's 129. The Scottish people deserve to have their voices heard.
No.
But sir, your predecessor David Cameron approved of the referendum in 2014. Don't you think you should follow the precedent your government set?
No.
Look, I understand that you legally have the right to approve of the referendum, but if you value democracy, you must let the Scottish people have their say.
No.
But
No.
Prime,
No. 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 No.
And so it was that Johnson put out a statement declaring he would not approve of an independence referendum. This could turn Scotland's voluntary union with England into more of a forced one, and it brings with it many negative implications regarding democracy and representation. However, regardless of whether Johnson would approve of the referendum, the decision would be up to Scotland. Many of the reasons Scotland joined the voluntary union are now obsolete, but not all. Scotland's union with England does bring some economic stability, but remaining a member of the European Union would give that too. Similarly, Scotland still benefits from its access to English trading, but with Brexit, it would lose its access to the EU trade network. Scotland doesn't have to worry about Jacobite rebellions anymore, nor would it have to worry about the descendants of James II stoking the Jacobites. It's very unlikely that a country is going to conquer Scotland at this point as well. The unification of currency, taxes, and trade is a nice boon for Scotland that it would lose if it seceded, and they would be compelled to adopt the euro if they wish to join the EU. Ironically, the desire to remain with the EU that led to a no vote in 2014 is exactly what's propelling the independence movement now, and the fear of a crisis without England was abated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw Sturgeon handle it markedly better than Johnson.
Yo, don't you value our membership in the European Union? It's critical to our European identity. Yes, but don't you value our membership in the United Kingdom? We've been part of it for over 300 years. That's more ingrained in our identity than the European Union. But think about all the trade access we'd lose if we didn't remain in the EU. Think about all the trade access we'd lose if we didn't remain with the UK. We trade much more with England than with any other nation. Besides, even if we become independent, do you think joining the EU is easy? It would take years to finalize independence, and many more to become a member, even if we get the unanimous approval we need. But look at Boris Johnson. Do you really want to live under the rule of someone who won't let us decide our own fate? He's within his legal rights to deny the referendum. Let me let this quote from First Minister Sturgeon, which I very conveniently memorized, speak for me. The implications of that would be very grave indeed. If the argument of the Unionist side is that Scotland is trapped, it strikes me that is one of the strongest arguments for independence. Hogwash, do you really think we'd be able to last without England? Think about what would happen if we one day need them.
I don't think we'll need them, dude. Look at how much better Sturgeon handled COVID than Johnson.
England probably made our health and safety worse. If Nicholas Sturgeon had been our one and only leader, we probably would have been better off. Scottish independence wouldn't be that simple, though. Think about this, what this would mean for other nations around Europe, such as Catalonia and Spain. We're setting a very important precedent here. Do you really want to lose the English standardization of currency? The EU you love so much would definitely make us stop the euro. We might be able to keep our own currency. Might.
Thus, Scotland remains in a debate with itself and with England over the merits and right of independence. No action has been taken yet, as Sturgeon will wait for the pandemic to settle down before making any moves towards an independence referendum, but it's almost certainly a when more than an if, and it remains to be seen whether the battle of wills between Scotland and Boris Johnson will end in the courts, and if Scotland does eventually become independent, and even more so if it eventually becomes a member of the EU, The implications will be huge, affecting possibly all of Europe. The future remains to be seen.